Hey, so it came to my attention that somehow my first attempt at part one of my videos about working with ayahuasca at the Temple of the Way of Light in Iquitos, Peru, had no audio. So I'm going to try again. Um, yeah, I went to, it was a year and a half ago. I went in June of 2023. Um, and I'd already been doing quite a lot of shadow work since then. Uh, because when I turned 42, kind of a year and a half before that, or no, was it? Yeah, I guess it was about a year and a half before that. Yeah, I realized that I don't know. I just had a lot of unprocessed something. I didn't really know what. I had no idea what was going on, but life was finally kind of good, and I didn't know how to enjoy it. I didn't know how to be happy. I didn't know how not to be reactive. I didn't know why I was being reactive, and so I got it in my mind to just, try many different things, such as a Vipassana retreat. I started doing IFS work, internal family systems, uh, and so on. Just try to figure out. It was like what I felt like was that I found myself lost in a thick jungle, and I had nothing but a dull machete, no map, and I was just like, okay, good luck, find your way out. So I was just kind of hacking it in every direction, trying to figure out, what to do, how to not be a miserable human, basically. Uh, because, like I said, everything in life had kind of turned out well, and there was no reason for me not to be happy, but I wasn't happy. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't figure it out. So, I heard about the Temple of the Way of Light and ayahuasca in general from Dr. Gabor Mate speaking with Tim Ferriss on his podcast, and the way Dr. Gabor talked about it, I don't know. I'm somebody who kind of likes to do extreme things, and this felt like extreme shadow work. Like really jumping into the deep end. And I always also wanted to go to the Amazon jungle. I mean, that's one part of the world I have not explored at all. I had not explored at all, and the idea of going there was just absolutely thrilling. I hadn't felt just the thrill of the travel and the shadow work, um, and the way Dr. Gabor talked about it, and the indigenous culture, the healing, all of it was just really grabbed me. And I started looking into it, and people are like, "Look, if it really grabs you, do it." And I was kind of like, "Well, sure." They all say that, and I was also like, "Well, sure, but it costs X amount of money, and not everybody has that lying around." Um, but then my my father had passed away quite a time, uh, a couple years earlier, and the money that he had left us, such as it was, started coming through, and along with some mineral interests that were paying a certain amount each month, and it felt kind of like a sign, like here you go, do it. And between sort of miles, like airline miles, and some other things, other than paying for the temple itself, which was like $3,500 or $3,900 or something, the entire trip, including flight and stays, was about $300. It really wasn't expensive at all. Um, so So yeah, that's kind of how it happened. And I was lucky enough that my husband took our kids to Branson for the week while I did this. Uh, so yeah, and of course, as soon as I got there, I guilt and fear would sometimes come up, like, oh, I should be back home managing things, making things easier for everyone, keeping everyone safe and happy and healthy. Um, but then I would tell myself, like, no, actually, I should be here working on myself, learning to quit living from fear, lack, control, guilt, resentment, and a lake of sadness, which part of the problem was that it was hard for me to even believe I deserved to feel sad, to feel anything at all. Um, but it's like you can't work on your feelings until you validate your own feelings. So I did my best to do that kind of, by my bootstraps. Um, and it was a nice group of people. They're all a very interesting, diverse group from all over the world, uh, and a lot of yeah, but a lot of shared or similar childhood wounds or tragedies they had lived through, or just this pervasive sense of loneliness or sadness that they didn't understand. And being among that in a context where vulnerability and authenticity are kind of the coins of the realm. Um, you know, it was it was really it was really beautiful to be among people who were just being open and just trying to find a way to be in this human realm in a better way. Like they just feel something in life's just not working and they don't really know what. But um, let's see. Yeah, I said the people here are really cool and many dealing with tough stuff. It's hard not to give some of them a big hug and tell them everything will be okay. We're not allowed to interfere with each other's process. And anyway, I'd be an unqualified hypocrite telling people everything was okay when I still didn't feel okay. But I felt very tender for the humanity, um, and also glad I had done as much work as I had done already because I wouldn't have wanted to have to start, you know, digging out from under that. And then, I mean, I was able to kind of like that was already dug out, and now I could keep going. Um, anyway, the first ceremony, what happens in the ceremonies is we do yin yoga for like 40 minutes or something like that before the ceremony. And so you're already on your, in the big maloka, the big ceremonial space, you're already on your mattress, which there's, 20 or whatever mattresses all around the center. And in the center, the maestros and maestras are kind of incanting over the over the medicines, over the perfumes, over the and blowing the pacho, um, the cleansing tobacco smoke, and sort of preparing the brew and the cups and everything else. And then one by one, each person takes, goes up and takes their drink. You kind of incant your intention over the drink, um, usually silently. And so, yeah, each person does that. And the first night, it was just kind of half of a dose, or maybe even a quarter of a dose, whatever a dose is. I don't know. But it was a small amount, kind of like a thimbleful almost. And the taste wasn't nearly as bad as I feared. I feared it would be just vile, but actually, it was just kind of like, arak is the kind of anise liqueur in the Arab world. It was just kind of like muddy arak, which I think I forget what they call it in Greek, in Greece or whatever, grappa or something. But yeah, it was just like a anise tea with little bits of mashed up bark in it, but mashed up really really well. So it wasn't. I mean, somebody complained once there was kind of almost like a splinter in his cup, but other than that, I didn't hear anything about that. It was just a little thick, but it was fine. It was anise. I don't love anise, but I don't doesn't I don't hate it either. So um, not really so bad. And my intention the first night was very simply help me be present and work with you because I'm not the very best at being present, especially I wasn't much worse at it then even. And I thought that's what it has to start with. Just help me stay present. Help me be here actually and not kind of projecting into the past or future or whatever, but like really take this seriously and be here and work with you. Um, and yeah, they called it a handshake with the medicine. They said maybe nothing will happen at all. So like don't try not to have any expectations. Um, so after everybody gets their dose, then one by one the little oil lamps are snuffed out and then taken away. So it's pitch darkness, other than you can kind of see a cigarette, um, and light up every now and then. It's very dark and it's kind of disorienting because you have two maestros and two maestros, and they each kind of spread out and sing an icaro to somebody, and they go around the circle such that each person gets four personal icaros, and so you basically have four people singing at the top of their lungs dissonant, different songs. Um, while there's kind of smells that are different and tastes in your mouth and your throat that are different, and it's dark and people start vomiting and you don't know what's going to happen, and so it can be you're kind of like, okay, this is it, what the fuck's going to happen. um but yeah, so during the 4 hours of the ceremony, uh pretty much nothing happened for me. I mean, I just tried to stay present and open. I was a little bit nauseated. um I did get a sense of somehow some core beliefs or core fears, um, namely that I'm not real and I don't matter. Um, it just there's some kind of primordial wound where I maybe as a kid I feel like I wasn't treated with respect or with any interest in my inner world. So all of that just or maybe there's something even beyond that, something ancestral or even beyond ancestral. Who knows? But anyway, yeah, that became clear. Um, back in my tambo though, because at the end you can either stay in the stay and sleep in the Moloko with several other people. You go back to your tambo, and I thought, well, it's a bust. I might as well go back to my own space. And I was kind of afraid that walking back through the jungle path at midnight, I had a little red headlamp, but still, like is I going to come across a puma or a poisonous snake or who even knows. Um, but actually, it felt very safe and very the path was clear. Even the ants didn't seem to be active. The ants, the huge army ants, with their little soldier guys with their giant, uh, I don't know, pincers. Um, they were kind of a fixture for the whole time we were there. I guess it was their time to migrate, and they would just like in these columns of like a million of them. They'd just be moving through the camp, and they'd move from the camp, across the path, and then you'd have to kind of like hop from rock to rock to get over the the creek of ants streaming through. Or one night they actually went through the bathrooms next to the Maloka. I think either somebody unfortunately like fumigated them to get rid of them, or they just shifted their path. But either way, we didn't have to worry about that during the actual an actual ceremony. But anyway, point is, I went back to my tambo, my hut, where we have no electricity, no electronics, just kind of a goofy little alarm clock, a little oil lamp, and a bed and a hammock and a toilet and a sink. And pretty much immediately, as soon as I got there, I started hallucinating. It was just or having visions, whatever you want to call it. Just kind of just psychedelic images, almost like kind of reminding me of Aztec carvings or faces. In some cases, uh, I I felt more and more and more nauseated, but I was so tired I didn't want to get up and vomit. I certainly didn't want to have to kneel over a toilet. Um, but but yeah, the medicine kept telling me like, okay, it's time to purge, and I was like, oh man, when it gets really, really, really bad, then I will. And and then pretty soon, like a big arm, like from Monty Python, was just pointing at the sink, like, just do it, sister, just do it. And so I was like, oh, fine. So I walked over to the sink, and we didn't eat dinner during the on ceremony days, so it's just liquid coming out. But I just vomited a bunch of citrus drink of some kind, um, and did feel better. Felt somewhat better. But as I did that, I noticed that I had a house plant that was about 4 or 5 feet high in the tambo, and I noticed it had a mouth like a little Venus flytrap kind of like mouth, like, and it was the color of lava. So it was this sort of demonic looking, mouth and teeth, uh and I was like, "Ooh, shit, did I do something wrong? Did I unleash a demon? Is there evil in this tambo?" Um, but then I was like, I reminded myself of something that I tell Ollie sometimes, which is, I understand, Ollie's my son. I understand that that's scary, but just because something's scary doesn't mean it's dangerous. And so that's what I tell myself. I'm like, just because it's scary doesn't mean it's dangerous. And I kind of had a general idea somehow that anything in my own mind can't hurt me unless I'm afraid of it. I guess I had that intuition. And let me see. Yeah, and I made a commitment to trust the medicine and to take my doubts and fears lightly. So I just watched. I just stayed still and watched. And several more of these like mouths appeared and just kind of softened and morphed. I mean, from this sort of angry lava color to kind of a muted purple, purple red color. And just was kind of just like opening and closing in its own little rhythm. And I could just see like it's not a big deal, not a big problem. Just you're just seeing something. Don't worry about it. Um, so yeah, I started seeing, like old time computers that would kind of like, if there was a virus or something, it would like one after another would like window would open and sort of almost like look at it coming at you. I felt like my I was seeing my memories like that, just sort of layered and stacked, and almost like something was accessing my brain and sort of trying to catalog things or try to get an idea of things. It was really interesting anyway. Um, and maybe some are being rearranged, who knows? Uh, yeah, um, and it's a bit intimidating being alone in the jungle for this stuff, but what can you do but trust? I came here to try this. What will be, will be. And there was also imagery of literal garbage, almost like it was kind of finding crap in there to defrag, to get rid of. Um, I like to think that might have happened. Garbage being processed, recycled, renewed, or just um, purged. Um, yeah, that cheeky hand pointing me to the sink to purge. That was kind of funny. Many of the visuals were phantasmagoric, and I realized the Dome of the Rock is a straight up psychedelic vision. Um, I've seen other similar designs in Iran, and it just looks like mushroom trip. Uh, so that was interesting. I felt kind of like I was being tested, and I did okay. But at the same time, it's like if this is just a taste, just a handshake, like God knows what might be next. Um, but anyway, yeah. So there was no ceremony the night after that. It was just kind of like just living in this magical place, um, seeing the animals, the um, the iguanas, and there was a tree frog once in my tambo, and the geckos like hunting um, mosquitoes, and I even saw one little like gray and black lizard of some kind like pounce on a bug at the benches close to the where we went to dry off after we had the flower baths, which flower bath sounds pretty romantic, but it's actually just cold water dumped over your head with plant matter in it that would get all over you and all in your crevices and everything else. But it was fun to kind of stand around at the benches and dry off in our bikinis or shorts or whatever. Um, but yeah, the second ceremony was totally different. Again, not much happened at the Maloka. I didn't purge. I didn't had any visions. Um, I was just like, man, I guess ceremonies aren't my thing. Uh, but I asked the medicine to help me with my anger, and again, once I got to my tambo, I started purging and didn't stop for hours. Um, and of course, pretty quickly I ran out of anything to purge, and so I just started like, like I was just roaring and grunting and yelling, and I was totally not in control of myself. Like maybe I could have stopped if I really really wanted to, but I didn't. I was just like surrender, let it go as much as it wants to go. It was just wave after wave after wave, and it was just relentless, never stopped. And because I was so surrendered to it didn't feel distressing and it didn't feel tiring. Um, it didn't feel great either. It didn't feel. It was just happening. I still don't have any idea what that was about. But but yeah, what I mean, occasionally I would get kind of lucid and just lay there and laugh at how insane it must sound to the others. Because our tombos are not. They weren't all right next to each other. They were spread out, but there were 4 or 5 within hearing distance of shouting. At least. So I was like, oh my god, I really hope nobody comes to my door to check on me because it would have been sweet, but I was so in the process and like having to come out of it enough to pretend to be human enough to explain that or to even try to explain what the hell is going on, or even just say, I'm fine. You know, I was really glad nobody did that. Um, sometimes when someone seems to be in distress, the best thing you can do is help them. Sometimes the best thing you can do is leave them alone. It's hard to know when that is, but they they did it right this time, so that was good. Um, but yeah, there were 4 times during that purging when I was I was not only was I not lucid, I was not in this realm. I was, like, yanked out into an entirely different reality. I don't know if it was another dimension. I don't know if it was an astral plane. I don't know if it was another galaxy, another universe. But it was what it felt like was my spirit or my soul was, like, hanging out with other spirits and souls somewhere. And I was like, I can make an analogy. Maybe it was a bar where spirits hang out. Maybe it was a hot air balloon fest. I mean, whatever. Name your human analogy, but just somewhere where spirits hang out, uh, like a vacation from being human. Um, and the first time it happened, actually, that time, what it felt like was that I was thrown completely into the void. Like there was no, in the beginning, yeah, just there was nothingness. So there's nothing to remember. There was nothing able to remember. There was nothing perceived. So God knows how long that lasted. But then next thing I knew, I could see visual input, which was a hallucination, I assume. I mean, it wasn't something in the room. It was like just glowing things, numbers, mandalas, kind of floating in space. I didn't know it was a room. I didn't know I had hands. I didn't know I was human. I didn't know anything except a wordless perception of, okay, there's some visual input. And it was funny how hard my mind grasped, how frantically it grasped for, okay, what's my context? Who am I? Where am I? What is this? What's going on? Um, Without words, I had no words yet, but just this something trying to exist and trying to exist in some context. So yeah, it slowly developed like a Polaroid image, but not just an image, it Polaroid everything. So it was like there's visual perception, um, and yeah, like I say, I couldn't put my hand up and look at that because I didn't know I had a hand. I didn't know I was human. I didn't know anything. So slowly, 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 it was like jungle, Peru, human, Ayahuasca. Oh, I'm a person who traveled to Peru to trip balls. That's okay. Okay, I get it now. Okay. Like it was such a relief just to sort of be back in, some individual existence, I guess, or a perception of, of an individual existence. Uh, so yeah. Um, and the second time, yeah, I think I covered the second time in the next video. So I will stop there for now. Cheers.